I mean, I know, but I didn't know if they were. Oh, I didn't know they got invited for the whole rest.
They did. They're being recognized.
I didn't know they got, I didn't think the whole team was.
You never know, right?
Good for them.
I think it's good they got a good number.
Yeah. That's what I'm gonna say. Excuse me. I haven't seen them without your softball pants on.
All right, what are we doing?
We're good.
Good?
6:01.
Okay.
You good, Brian?
I'm good.
We're good, Sean?
Okay.
Sean's on.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our work session for Monday, June 20th, 2022. Do I hear a motion to come out of closed session?
I make a motion that we come out of closed session.
Thank you, Ms. Daskell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McBeath. And a vote, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we are out of closed session. Mr. Mead, could you please read the certification of closed session?
Whereas the New Kent County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas section 2.2-3711, the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the New Kent County School Board that such closed meetings was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the New Kent County School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which the certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the New Kent County School Board.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the certification of the closed session?
I make a motion that we approve the certification of closed session.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Daskell. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Mead, and board members, a vote, please. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed. All right. And the certification of the closed session is approved. All right, our first item on the agenda tonight under 2 is recognitions. We have 2 recognitions this evening. Our first recognition is the Vhsl Film Festival winner, Peyton Wheeler, for the 2021-2022 Best Public Service Announcement.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Winford. Tonight is Champions Night. We don't typically recognize individuals at the work session, but we know a lot of these individuals will not be with us in August because they'll be off to school and different things. So we wanted to capitalize on it tonight. So we have 2 members that are part of the state champion PSA, public service announcement. And I believe we have it queued up. All right, so we'll watch this and then I'll introduce them. I think you can see why that video won. So they were the winners of the Vhsl Film Festival. So great honor. So I do want to recognize both of them this evening. So you have one of them on the screen. So we have Peyton Wheeler. I'm sorry, come up this way.
Yeah.
That way, yeah, perfect. Camera. So, and then we also have Lawson Matthews. So these two individuals are your state champion public service announcement winners, and they do this work through TV media right here at the high school. So not sure if it's a first, but I haven't seen it in quite some time. So I want to congratulate these state winners.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Peyton. Thank you, Lawson, for coming out this evening. Really appreciate it and really appreciate your message and your work on that important announcement. Okay, our second recognition this evening is the recognition of our VHSL Class 3 state softball champions.
All right.
Yay.
I had the privilege and honor of following this team to a lot of games this year. And many of them are probably looking at me right now and go, oh, I didn't know he did something else other than watch softball games. But it's just been an absolute joy to see this team in action. I was at the state semifinal game, and so we do have a region player of the year. She's here with us. There was a runner on first, and she gets up there. I'm like, oh, she's going to town. I see the sign come in from coach, and she bunts to advance the runner. That is just the embodiment of this team. It's about advancing the runner. It's about getting a run in, and it's about, you know, moving forward. And you just saw that over and over again with this team. I also have Debbie Richards here, who's from the New Kent Education Foundation. So they have something for you as well. New Kent Education Foundation does a lot of work for New Kent County Public Schools. They also want to congratulate you on this great state championship. It is the first softball state championship in the history of New Kent County Public Schools. So it's huge. So Alan Files, who's our current president, says he would love to be here tonight. He used to coach softball back in the day as well. New Kent Education Foundation provides a homecoming dinner, new teacher baskets, scholarships, teacher instructional grants. They helped with our block party for teachers last week. There are a million things that this team does. 1 mile run, which I came in 3rd place. The 5K, which I didn't even come in. And they also sponsor the Bowl-a-thon, which is November 5th. So softball players, if you think you can beat me in bowling, I challenge you to come out to that. They do have a Facebook page, and they've been around since 2004. They've almost given $1 million to schools since 2004, and they're huge supporters of yours. So today they brought very special cookies, limited edition, the only edition. New Kent High School 2022 state champion cookies. So
Nice.
Hold on to these or eat them. The choice is yours. And they're from Sea Island Confections, which is a New Kent parent located in West Point on Main Street. So I do want to recognize these young ladies at this time. So I'll switch with you. How about that? We'll do that. So if you'll come up here, just like Peyton and Lawson did, we'll start down there and we'll make our way here. So in no particular order, we have Aileen Alexander. Haley Baker. We go over 3.
It's beach week.
The coach is going to pull me. So no, I know she's here. Morgan Bird. You're going to start our line. Yeah. And I won't tell a story about all of them because we do have other things to do tonight, but I saw Morgan pitch the state semifinal, and I went over to somebody and I said, she pitched the game of the season, maybe the game of her life. And I was worried about the finals, but you know what she did? She really pitched the game of the season in the finals and struck out 10. So we have Cassidy Branch. Libby Britt. Morgan, you have to slide down. Riley Gary. Abby Keegley. And then you're gonna give me the sign on these names, okay? Lindsay Kunkel is here. The Region Player of the Year, who I mentioned did a sacrifice bunt, McKenna Mueller. Now you can't tell me because you'll be facing it. That's all right. We have Nora Murray. Hannah Perkins. Addison Rowe. Jess Taggart. Anna Tober. Kennedy Ziegler. So we had some outstanding managers with us too, and I don't know if they're here or not, but they were wonderful and entertaining. So Yanti Locklear, but didn't see. We have Kellen Roberts. And we also have some rock star coaches. So we have Laura Bauer. Our JV coach who also assisted, but I don't think is here, is Nikki Jones. We also have your Region Softball Coach of the Year, Maria Bates.
Yay.
So once again, congratulations to our New Kent softball team. Pause for a moment for the paparazzi.
That's right. Take all the
You should
pictures
be
you
used to
need.
that. All right, thank you for an incredible year. Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
Way to go. I just told Miss Swinford, it's so refreshing as a dad of 3 daughters who graduated from New Kent. It's the first time I have seen the entire girls softball team without softball pants.
Mr. Me, to your point, I didn't recognize several of them.
I asked Miss Swinford, I said, do they play on the softball team?
Yeah.
Way to go, ladies. You're just flat awesome.
You don't have to.
You don't
stay.
have to stay.
If you, it's
We'll pause and give you a moment to.
Now, just so you know, what's better than one state championship is
2.
back to back. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful summer.
Thank you, parents, as well.
Thank you for coming out this evening. And thank you, Peyton and Lawson as well. Did you all get a picture? Did they get a picture that they need, Peyton and Lawson? Take some cookies. Debbie, sneak out of here.
Really?
Okay.
Debbie.
Leftover cookies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Great job.
Absolutely. Come on up.
That's awesome. Great job.
All right. Thank you very much. Back to our agenda. Give Dr. Nichols a minute to regroup. We're giving him a lot of work this evening.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Superintendent's Comments, which is our Superintendent's Comments to public comment from the June regular meeting. So Dr. Nichols, please go ahead when you're ready.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Swinford, and board members. Thank you for allowing us to do recognitions. We have, I think, 6 or 7 seniors who will be off college by the time August came around.
Yep. Perfect timing. Perfect
Yep,
timing.
perfect timing. And we just missed beach week, so most of them are back. So superintendent comments, we did not have many or any questions last time. We did have some concern about opt-in versus opt-out for middle school books. We are looking at that through the summer and looking at what that'll be. So you'll see something in August. I do have a presentation tonight because we did have comments about the governor's report on education. So I am going to talk about that in a presentation this evening. So that will speak to those pieces there. We did have a parent who spoke about security and safety. So you'll be seeing a presentation coming to you in July around not only a presentation, but also some appropriation for funds connected to safety and security measures. One second, board members, make sure I have those pieces. Yep, so those were the main topics that were covered, but specific to questions, that's where we are.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Nichols. Appreciate that. All right, moving along. We are now under new business, number 4 on our agenda. Our first update is VSBA policy updates, which is a first reading. Under goal number 3, to develop safe, clean, functional infrastructure and operations to support student and staff success. Dr. Nichols, once again, I'll
Yes,
turn the
ma'am.
floor to you.
So board members, what you have before you for the first read is the spring, summer policy revisions that we received through the Virginia School Board Association. So you have about 26 of them. The summary sheet shows what the change is beside each of them. Most of them, as state code changes, we have to change the code at the bottom of the policy. So for instance, health and physical education, that policy has been updated to reflect the amendment of the Virginia Code. So most of these are connected to code changes. The student involvement decision-making was a grammatical edit on behalf of the VSBA. If it's not a code, then legal references have been updated related to those. This is a first read, so you do have the entire almost month. So if there is feedback on any and all of these policies, we'll be happy to work through those. Most of them, if not all, are really connected to technical edits related to code, House bills, or state law.
Okay. Board members, any questions initially? Again, this will come up for a vote at our second reading, but if anybody has any questions or comments or anything to highlight right now, please let us know. Okay. All right, moving along, then next item on our agenda is the 2022-2023 Student Handbook / Code of Conduct first reading. This is essential goal number 2, to provide opportunities for all students to shape and foster a positive, respectful school culture, civic responsibility, and global awareness. Mr. Joe Ellis.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Nichols. So I'm going to go through 3 proposed revisions for your consideration this evening. The first of which has to do with the THC vapor products that we talked about back in March. And I recall speaking to you about Senate Bill 591 that was going through the General Assembly. That did make it through. It went to Governor Youngkin's desk. However, he did send it back to the General Assembly with some revisions and updates that he would like to see. So currently that is not part of the state code. So like I said, the first thing there is to propose to make that the amendment that we talked through in March a permanent addition to the Code of Conduct, where we've added a level 4 under the tobacco possession or using tobacco products, electronic cigarettes, or vaping equipment, with the note below. It's identical to what we talked about in March. Yep. Okay. The second is the language of portable electronic communication devices in the current Code of Conduct. That is the explicit language. There's not really any examples or definitions of what a portable electronic communication device is. So that's come up with regard to cell phones. So two proposals. The first is to just revise the language in the policy just to give some specific examples, and then also revise to give some not necessarily mandatory consequences, but give teachers and administrators some options of what they can do with those in the classroom. So the first page behind that, you can see on page 33 in the current handbook, we just want to add a definition. I won't read it out loud to you there. Doing some legal research, this seems to be a common definition in state codes throughout the United States having to do with people driving with cell phones and electronic devices in cars. I would have used the language from the Virginia code, except it only talks about mobile phones. It doesn't refer to anything else where, like my son has a Nintendo Switch. You can get on the internet on the Nintendo Switch in the middle of class and do all kinds of stuff with it. So wanted to be more encompassing of what those electronic devices are. Yeah, or an Apple Watch or ear pods or
Joe,
whatever.
where does the watch fit in that? That's
Yeah.
what I was just wondering. Device with mobile data access?
Mobile data access, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we
We may
can-
want to consider explicitly
Sure.
saying smartwatch
Yep.
or whatever
Well,
the
but the
term.
headphones too, because you don't have to have your phone out to be able to use the
Yeah.
headphones for it.
I think the two things we're going to run up against the most is going to be the cell phone and the smartwatch. So I mean, I think the more we explicitly state those two things.
Yep.
I don't know if I've seen a PDA in a while, but
Yeah.
maybe we have bomb
I
file
didn't
going
even,
around.
yeah.
So, but I agree with the electronic game. We do have kids here with
Mhm.
Switches and Game Boys and the different pieces there.
Well, and I think we should include the headphones too.
Yeah, I
Earbuds.
just wrote
Ear
down. I
pods.
Yeah,
wrote
because
down
they can
earbuds.
communicate through that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that I just
That's
wrote
good
that down
point.
on my copy.
Okay.
And this is a first read and we have some work to do in between this one and the next one. So
Yep.
thank you and keep adding additional comments.
Okay, and then the next page, in the current policy, it says that a student or students having these devices or using them in class may constitute a disciplinary infraction. What that might be, that would be up to the administrator at that point. So what I proposed here is to add some specific, here's what we can do in the case that students are using them when they should be focusing on instruction in the classroom. So first offense, they may be required to power off the device and put it out of sight, just put it away. Second offense, student may be required to surrender the device to the teacher for the class period, and they can collect it at the end of the class period. And then third offense, surrender the device to the teacher, who then takes it to the main office and parent has to come pick it up. Those seem pretty standard in surrounding divisions. So I wanted to add that explicitly there, just so people know what to expect if there's child or student is using that in the classroom. Any questions on?
And before we go into dress code, Joe,
Mhm.
our work this summer with administrators and late summer, fall with parents and teachers is really going to be about making sure they understand making sure we implement it, because that is a gap in
Yes.
practices. But two, making sure parents know that this will be implemented and it will be addressed. And these are the consequences related to these specific things.
And I would expect that we would see an uptick in disciplinary. And if we don't, then we probably are not
Enforcing the
changing,
policies.
right,
Okay.
changing
Mhm.
our behavior as far as teachers are concerned, that the teachers aren't enforcing it.
Well, and we want to make sure we're supporting teachers in the enforcement of it too. So
Agreed.
this has been a conversation at teacher advisory the past
Mhm.
several, and at parent advisory as well.
Mhm.
So but I think you're correct. We will see a spike before we level out.
Mhm.
And this will be something that parents have to sign off on with the
Yes.
code of conduct,
Yes.
which we do every
Absolutely.
year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll emphasize it. It's really a middle high school piece, although we do have some of it in elementary
Elementary
as
school.
well. But in our open houses, in our back to schools, in our presentations, this will be a point of emphasis. We've also talked about partnering with the sheriff's department on a couple of these things related to cell phones and social media. So we may be planning an event in the summer for families as well. So we'll make it a point of emphasis in everything we do.
You know, after our last meeting that we talked about this, I think it was in the March timeframe. You know, we heard some feedback from some teachers who did an informal study on the disruption that they've experienced during class, and, you know, really eye-opening. And I think this is a very good step. And I think, you know, putting some guardrails around this with some consequences, you know, will hopefully bring this to, you know, background noise.
Sure,
So,
absolutely.
you.
Especially when we're, a one-to-one school division, students already have, access to, a computing device right there in front of them
Right, right.
for the purpose of education. So I think this is sensible. All right. And then last but not least, the dress code. So I started out here just with the Code of Virginia specifically addressing the dress code. And, I highlighted there 2 points in that the dress code as written by school division should maintain gender neutrality by subjecting any student to the same set of rules and standards, and then not have a disparate impact on students of a particular gender. So point 2 there, our current dress code does mention gender specific clothing such as skirts and dresses. And then with point 3, as applied, currently the dress code does have a disparate impact on our female students. So the next slide, I did include some data. I read through every single dress code violation that we have in our student information system over the last week or so. There were 44 in total. 30 were from females, 14 from males. So it's 68% of the dress code violations were for girls, whereas we only have 48% of our population in New Kent in the school division is female. Specifically, 26 out of those 30 dress code violations were for shorts that were more than 4 inches above the knee, or rips in jeans that were more than 4 inches above the knee. There were less than a handful of those that specifically noted that the rips, or specifically the rips, were way up in the pocket or like waistband area. So I think we're in the realm of a little bit of subjectivity. I don't know if our administrators are using an index card or something like that to measure those, that 4 inches above the knee. But most of them are noted in our student information system as that 4 inches.
Well, you can't hardly buy girls' shorts that are 4 inches.
Oh, I agree. I have a
above the
daughter.
knee.
I'm in that. I'm in that boat with you. Now, since I'm the data guy, I will throw out a little bit of data real quick. I did a lot of medical
Please.
research. So the average height of an adolescent female is 5 feet, 5 feet flat. In the medical literature, an adolescent female's femur is 27% of her height. So 60 inches times 27% gives you 16 inches of femur length. So from hip to knee is 16 inches. So if we say 4 inches above the knee,
That means
that's
a 12-inch inseam.
12-inch
or-
shorts.
Yeah.
Whereas if we go, as you'll see on the next page, mid-thigh, that's an 8-inch length. So that's a big gap. That's 4 inches. And being, like I said, someone who has a daughter, it is difficult finding even my daughter's only 6, finding her clothes.
Her femur hadn't fully developed.
No, it hasn't. But finding clothes for her that even come to mid-thigh is tough sometimes. So flipping the page there.
And Joe, just to jump in a little
Sure.
bit. So Joe showed you the number of infractions. That does encompass the number of times that a parent has been called for a dress
Sure.
change. And
Okay.
so we encounter it a lot more. It just doesn't necessarily get
Get
entered,
recorded.
specifically middle school and even at the high school for a degree. It's call your mom, get change clothes, or call, or those pieces. So we've received a fair amount of feedback from families. And this is another topic of parent advisory about could there be some shifts to the dress code so that it is more balanced. So that's what we're working towards.
So I'm going to, Mr. Terry, could you go back one slide for me? Thank you, sir. So I won't read through the top there for you, but as far as the minimum dress requirements, I did put a little diagram in there. As crude as it is, I think it's illustrates the point. So clothing must cover the area from armpit to armpit across the chest and back. down to mid thigh. So everything from armpits down to mid thighs got to be covered all the way around. So tops do have to have straps. You notice that there's no 2 inches, 3 inches. We're not going to go around with fingers and do anything like that, but they do have to have straps across the shoulders. And then rips or tears in clothing, ripped jeans is a huge fashion thing right now. But the language here is that those rips or tears have to be below mid thigh, just like shorts. They have to be at the mid thigh. So shoes must be worn at all times and should be safe for the school environment. So they can be open or closed toed, but we can't have bedroom slippers or anything like that. So if garments are made of see-through materials, we still have to meet requirement number 1 underneath those see-through or mesh materials. Number 4 is pretty standard. Headgear, including hats, baseball caps, and whatnot, are not permitted in school unless you have a medical or religious exemption for them. And then, of course, principals can make exceptions to that rule for things like spirit days and whatnot. And then we do have some special courses or, activities, if kids wear a sports uniform or something like that on game day to school, there'll be exceptions for that as well.
I think that's one of the points that a parent made to me. If you go to volleyball or track, that uniform does not meet our dress code.
Absolutely not. It does not.
So, it's just, parents had some very good points as we.
But in those particular case, I would say for both volleyball and for track, then the compromise, just like basketball, because boys typically would not wear their basketball uniform for school, but they could wear their warm-ups.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we would do absolutely.
In those particular sports, that warm-ups would be required versus the
For the jersey.
Yeah.
I personally struggle with the dress code rules. I think that I don't know what we're trying to achieve with all the rules around dress code.
So then on the last page here, there's certain restrictions of course, number 1, depicting anything illegal, violent, lewd, weapons, alcohol, tobacco, controlled substances, or anything like that is prohibited. Pornography, nudity, or sexual acts. Vulgar, discriminatory, or obscene languages or images. I guess that could go also up there with number 1 with lewd conduct. But number 4, clothing that can cause a serious disruption to the school environment, or violate another student's rights with regard to race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, or any other protected classification. So, students wearing anything that, may disparage another student based on, something that they believe in or how they identify. 5, sunglasses can't be worn inside the building. Clothing and accessories that endanger students or staff. We had an incident of that at the high school this year. A kid had a big, huge chain attached to his wallet and his belt. It was rather large, could have definitely been used as a weapon. Apparel, jewelry, accessory, tattoos that signify any sort of gang involvement would also be prohibited. And then, of course, this is a guideline, so the administration in each school would have the ability to determine what constitutes appropriate dress, so long as it's within the bounds that you guys establish as far as the school board goes. And then, as far as the disciplinary consequences, most of what I read through in the student information system, either a student had a change of clothes that they immediately put on and were allowed to go to class, or parents were called and they brought in clothes. I didn't read any issues where somebody just flat out refused and they weren't going to abide by the dress code. However, for the revision, should that be the case, the student would just remain in an in-school suspension setting during the day. That's not necessarily saying that it needs to get written up in the student information system as a suspension. It's just if they're not abiding by the dress code, they would have to participate in their studies from another location within the building.
With other students that were also in-school suspension?
As it's written, yes. But
Yeah, because I
We
guess
can
it
look
would
at that.
almost be considered like a referral, right?
yeah, I mean, there is a dress code referral. in, as part of the state's discipline reporting. And that's how it's been coded in the student information system. As far as I'm aware, we didn't have any suspensions that resulted from that. It was simply all like parent contact. So and that's why I say it wouldn't necessarily be a suspension to say that, if you're going to refuse to abide by the dress code, it's not going to be a suspension, and you're not going to, have that go on your record. It would just be, well, if you're going to refuse to abide by the dress code, you can't participate in class with everyone else for the day. But I'm definitely gonna make a note of that. We are holding a focus group tomorrow evening. We have parents, we have administrators, we have teachers. So we're all going to go through this together, and we'll get their feedback on this as well.
How big of a group is that usually? I mean, are we talking 50 people, 10?
No. It's a smaller group. 7 or
Okay.
8.
Well, this is a huge topic. I know board members, I get a lot of questions,
Mhm.
direct questions, indirect questions about this. It's been a source of a lot of, frustration for quite a few years. And I'm happy to see it addressed. I don't think we're going to solve everything overnight, but, hopefully we're making, steps in the right direction, and this is a first reading.
Mhm.
So welcome any, questions tonight or comments, but we
Can
will
we just
be.
go to uniform?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really the only way we can
Mhm.
say you can't wear anything but.
Yeah.
If
Right.
you either go all uniform, or you have to have some give and take.
Board members, we do have one more piece on the code of conduct. It's really an implementation piece,
Okay.
and there's not a slide associated with it. But we'll make sure it's a bullet in the second read. This year specifically, we had a couple different walkouts, protests. In a sense, not only us, almost every high school in the state of Virginia had it.
Mhm.
So if you've been following Hanover, they've recently made some shifts. So we have right now in our code of conduct, it's not being in your assigned location. So not that kids don't have a right to feel a certain way about certain things, but when you leave class without permission and 100 of you gather out front, it is a disruption. It is a safety issue at one of them. We did have a kid, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. There are kids that just leave class so they can leave class. So a kid left class, didn't realize why he was leaving class, got to the demonstration and realized he didn't agree. Well, when he didn't agree, he showcased that he didn't agree, became an issue. It's also something else for us to supervise. So we'd like to discourage that by saying there will be a disciplinary consequence if you walk out of class. There are other ways that we can support your efforts to have a voice, but leaving class in first block, second block lunch, or whatever is not a safe way to do it. So if there is something that is sanctioned by the school, we can certainly do that. But a pop-up event like that, it's not safe and it's not a good practice. So we will be taking a tougher stance on that, and also communicating to that families on as well. So I didn't know if you guys had any feedback on that, but that you won't see that as a code of conduct change. It's just how we're enforcing that.
Agree.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions on this first reading for the student handbook and code of conduct?
Yeah, I think that is in this particular code of conduct. And again, I think we would all agree in theory. There's nothing that is horrifically wrong with the code of conduct. It's just a matter of empowering the necessary people and supporting them and enforcing the code of conduct in a way that immediately addresses the issue, in a way that students, teachers, and administrators get the message and the support that says, we support you for endorsing and for executing the code of conduct. Because then it makes the administrators' lives easy, makes the SROs,
Mhm.
life easy, because you can't argue. This is what it says.
Right.
This is what you signed. This is what you agreed to. And we're just enforcing what was told to us, basically. And so I look forward to, and I'll go back to what Andrew said, is that I think the great litmus test is seeing how we do enforce this moving forward with the support of the board and all of the entities behind the administration. So.
I just had one question on the, the walkouts. So if we're not going to have a separate section in the code of conduct, how are parents going to know that it's going to be enforced and it's, word of mouth?
Well, no, I
Yeah,
think
how
that's
are you gonna-
so similar to the dress code and the cell phone piece is to make that a point of emphasis, really here at the high school. In the 9th grade, 10th grade, all the different grade level town halls and things that they do. It's just connect those two pieces together. Now, I mean, if you want us to pursue adding a specific piece as far as protests and walkouts or whatever those pieces, we could certainly explore that between first and second. We think, in talking to the administration, that we can make it a point of emphasis and communicate it and enforce it under an existing piece right now. But be happy to pursue.
Well, maybe it's a parentheses issue that it says this includes.
Okay.
This includes walkouts, this includes,
There you go.
Demonstrations.
demonstrations, political protest, whatever, and just put it in parentheses of what it includes. So we kind of take away the vagueness of someone coming back to say, well, didn't say that.
Includes but not limited to,
To,
just
there you
do.
go.
Well, maybe what we do, we kind of said about having a town hall or something like that, and maybe we do it around those issues,
Yeah.
these kind of
Yeah,
hot
and you say, parents,
topics.
this is what we're saying.
And we kind of put it out there as a town hall. We might get better attendance
Okay,
too.
but I think we can do both of those things.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the parentheses.
I think it would,
Mhm.
diffuse any ambiguity. It's in there, it's in writing.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
Good point.
Joe, you got that note?
Mhm.
Or I got, okay, between the
Yeah,
two
yeah,
of us, well,
yeah, we
all
got it.
right, so we'll make sure you see that in the second reading
Okay,
before we go forward.
okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. We'll look forward to the second reading in July.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Our third item, item C, report on education update, which is under essential goal number 1, to provide for and monitor the development of academic, organizational, behavioral, and social competencies to ensure individual student success. Dr. Nichols.
All right, good evening again, board members. This report is actually coming from citizen comments, so wanted to just highlight this to a degree. So, Mr. Terry, if you can give me the next slide, please. So in May, I believe May 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, a report was published, our commitment to Virginians report. It was released from the governor's office. I've linked it there. So if you do pull this from board docs, you can have it. The report highlights a number of data points, but primarily focuses on an honesty gap in Virginia's data. So I'll dive into what is an honesty gap. So honesty gap refers to the discrepancy between proficiency on national assessment of educational progress, which for the rest of the presentation I'll refer to as NAEP, and each state's assessment. So for Virginia, it's really NAEP versus our SOL test is the comparison that they're making in this report. So just a little bit about NAEP. So NAEP measures academic performance of the nation's students. So a kid in Illinois and a kid in Virginia in 4th grade all take the same assessment, basically. But the difference between that and the SOL is not all 4th graders take it. Not all 8th graders take it. Not all seniors take it. As a matter of fact, the last time we participated in NAEP was 2019, and that was New Kent Middle School. So what occurs is you get a letter in the fall saying you've been selected. There's a randomized selection process, so they have a representative sample of schools and school divisions across the country. So we could go a number of years and never participate, or we could participate in back-to-back years depending on what occurred. So in 2019, our 8th graders participated in. So I think it's important just to note that with SOL testing in Virginia, that's every 8th grader, every 4th grader, and so forth. And the NAEP is a representative sample, and they do have some great metrics behind it to show how they do their sampling. Another piece on the NAEP is school students and families do not receive results of the NAEP. So it is, as a former principal, it is a mysterious test that you have kids take and you never hear anything about it again. You'll never hear how New Kent Middle School did. There's no reporting back of the NAEP. One of the downsides of it, I would like for us to be able to see how we do specifically or how this class does specifically. But and the next bullet is a little lengthy, but it's right from the NAEP's website, and I link the direct link as well. It's important to note that the term proficiency used in relation to state tests, so if you're proficient in an SOL test, is not the same as being proficient on NAEP. So you have to be careful when comparing those two things because they're a little different. Because the criteria used to determine proficiency are different. So that's the source link right there that takes you to the NAEP. So just wanted you to have a little background about the NAEP because this report leans heavily on the NAEP versus the SOL test. So here are some key points from the report. So from the governor's office, there's a significant lowering of expectations, a lack of transparency with data, and weak accountability for results. I think it's important to note, and if you watch the press conference or go back and watch it, and throughout the report, these key points are not focused on individual school divisions. Okay, it's focused on the Virginia Department of Education, the State Board of Education. If you watched that meeting last week, that was interesting, and on legislators. So the plan from the governor's office in the next 4 years are to do the following bullets. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of those in action: establish and maintain high expectations, advance parent and teacher empowerment, and those pieces directly taken from that report. I want to zoom in on the significant findings just for a second. So, whoops, I'm Terry's maybe dizzy. You were good. You were right with me. That Ross Miller may not have an opportunity when he comes back. So continuation of key points. So the report continually mentions the lowering of expectations. I think it's important to note that those expectations are set by the Virginia Department of Education. We call them standards. New Kent County Public Schools, Williamsburg James City Schools don't set the standards that are taught. So whether it's civic standards or English standards, we get those standards, those expectations from the Virginia Department of Education. Also, it was mentioned in the report, and I think in the comments here about the cut scores that are set, that the cut score in algebra was this, and it should be higher. We don't set those cut scores. The school division doesn't set them. Matter of fact, our kids log in on their Chromebook, they take their assessment, and that's the end of it. So Mr. Ellis gets a fancy report. We don't determine what the cut score is. It's really the testing company and really the Virginia Department of Education. So the lack of transparency in data, when you dive into that report, it really focuses on the new growth measures that have been in place for the past few years in accreditation. So if a student makes growth, they essentially receive the same credit as a kid who passes. Okay, that's the current setup that's there. I think rewarding growth is a great thing. You could argue whether it's the same as a pass or not. But those accreditation measures and calculations, once again, are completed by Virginia Department of Education. And you'll see a theme with these key points. And I think the state superintendent and governor really hit on these as well. The weak accountability for results, all of that is managed by legislation and the State Board of Education. So we've been through this report. We've been through the data points. As these change, we're going to change with them. So if the standards are changed, we will teach the new standards as we're doing with new content now. If the cut scores are changed, that'll happen without us. We're going to continue to focus on what's in our control. So a lot of that is not in our control. I do advise people to be somewhat careful with some of the data points. The one data point in there that I take issue with is the lowering of AP numbers and results. New Kent County Public Schools with a lot of school divisions in the state of Virginia have moved away from advanced placement and moved to more dual enrollment. We find ourselves, one, the cost for advanced placement is higher than dual enrollment. So from a fiscal standpoint, it makes more sense to be dual enrollment. We have a number of kids who are passing advanced placement tests and not getting college credit when they go off to college. When you take a dual enrollment course, your chances of having that accepted are higher. The costs are less expensive. So we've really shifted from advanced placement to dual enrollment where we can. The level of teacher, to be a dual enrollment teacher, you need to have 18 credits beyond a bachelor's in that field of study. So it's a fairly rigorous process as well. So here's our focus. Analyze our spring SWL data, which we're working on, and we'll be bringing a report to the board about that, and make adjustments based on those results. This is really a baseline for us. This is the first year since 2019 that we were in session for 180 days, 5 days a week, in as much of a typical school year as we can have. So we see this as our baseline. We know we'll see growth, but you don't overcome a closure mid-year and a disrupted school year in 1 year. We wouldn't profess to do that. But we have strong plans to continue to gain ground. So next year will be year one of a new comprehensive literacy plan, which we'll be bringing a report to you guys and very excited about. So coming in August, you'll be able to kind of see that comprehensive literacy plan in place. This is year two of our Summer of More program. We're very excited about the increase in Summer of More, additional intervention opportunities. And last year we rolled out a number of after-school programs at each level. So you'll see that continue. Some students just need more time, and now we have multiple vehicles for kids to have more time. And then I mentioned the expansion of dual enrollment opportunities in both college and career fields. It is my hope and somewhat of a dream to have almost every kid who walks across the stage to have some sort of opportunity like that in a college or career field before they leave New Kent. So wanted to highlight the education report, share some links with you, and really talk about our focus in New Kent. Be more than happy to answer any questions or talk about any specific things in that report. It was just, I think, more comprehensive to do that in a report than just in a statement for citizen comments.
Agreed.
Dr. Nichols, I have two questions. The first question is general.
Sure.
How often do standards change from the Department of Education?
You know, you think when you call something a standard that it stays the same, but they change on average, I think every 7 years is the rotation. And with that, we have textbook adoption rotation and those pieces. So they phase them in, so you're not adopting all new standards in every subject across 13 grade levels. So, you know, English is typically 1 year, and then math, and then science, social studies, those pieces. So you're almost always adopting a different standard over the course of that continuum. And sometimes, I'm sorry, Ms. Winford, to add to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes those are significant shifts, major shifts in standards, and sometimes it's really technical.
So something that a parent wouldn't even see, you know, easily, you know.
Easily, yeah, quite potentially. This one.
And the second question, I'm glad that you spent a lot of time talking on that last bullet for the focus in New Kent, because this is what I hear when I talk to parents, you know, in the community and so on and so forth. Do we keep metrics? Do we keep data on how many students carry dual enrollment credits with them when they graduate? And I know it's hard to get that information once they walk off that stage, and a lot of things happen, you know, in that first year when they leave. But do we try to get that information from our seniors, how many credits they're taking with them to their college, their community college, or their 4-year college, or AP credit?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can bring that data point to a future board meeting, and I'll send it to you ahead of that. But we have a really impressive trend line over the past 3 years with college level credit. And as we expand to dual enrollment psychology, D biology, D government, all those things next year, and the expansion of bridging communities, that number is going to get even greater. So we do have that stat, and I'll bring it forward. RCC, probably their favorite partner because we have the largest number of dual enrollment credits, both on the college and career side. So they're big partners and big proponents, and we've actually been awarded a number of grants to expand that dual enrollment piece. But yes, we'll make sure we get that number.
Thank you.
I have two questions. The comprehensive literacy plan, look forward to hearing more about that. But just is that targeted across all, elementary, middle, high, or really more focused on the elementary, middle?
The primary focus of the literacy plan is going to be elementary.
Okay.
Because if we can get you where you need to be by third grade, the research says that you will stay there or you will stay on track. We actually have it's either tomorrow or Wednesday is the kickoff of that literacy summit. We're doing one for teachers before summer starts and then one when they come back under contract and they can choose. But it's something that we're taking every pre-K 5 teacher through a year-long process with this literacy summit. So literacy is alive and well in middle school and high school, but this focus is primarily on elementary.
Getting them a good foundation.
Yes.
So, okay, that's good. And then Summer Moore, have we seen any increase in the number of folks or kids attending these programs?
Yes,
compared to last year?
compared to last year. So we're very excited that we've been able to expand it so that we don't have kids on a wait list. So last year we had kids waitlisted. We made some changes and thank you to the instructional department for doing that to the way we offered it last year. Last year was year one and we offered 2 different camp type scenarios for families. This year we're doing one larger one and kids will have multiple experiences within that. So we kind of streamlined it to make it more accessible and to make it more interesting for more families. So we do run up against staffing issues related to it, especially coming out of a really tough academic year. Recruiting teachers to be a part of that can be tough. But right now at the elementary and middle specifically, we're going to be a little larger than we were last year, which is trending in the right direction.
That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board members, any other questions for Dr. Nichols or comments on the education update? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for bringing that report tonight, Dr. Nichols. All right. Our next item, we're in old business. First item is our construction update under essential goal number 3 for efficiently managing the growth of the student population. Mr. Tim Pollock.
And I'll be joining Mr. Pollock as his co-presenter.
Good afternoon, board. How are y'all?
Very good. Good to see you.
Good to see y'all.
Sean, when you get us, there you go. Perfect.
Oh.
That's Tim's slide.
Yeah, that's Tim's slide. Let's start on the outside. They're up there grading today, the playground area. So we're getting a site. The bus canopy, if anybody's been by, is completely in. The canopy for the student drop-off is in. The outside skin is at about 50%. They're still having issues getting the metal for that on the outside. Everybody knows what I'm talking about around the facial and all that. Also, the roof caps the same way, still having issues getting the metal for that to get it finished. They have given me a substantial completion. Our first substantial completion will be on 7/12/22, and that will be for wings for C and F wings. They got that wrong. Yep, that's what they got. C and F, they've got wings for 7/12. And then what they're saying in 7/12 on 7/12 is for substantial completion. It will not have the blinds, window film, signage, handrails, and roof pavers at that time. So,
Outside of that, CNF will be done
yes.
on the 12th of July. Okay.
Yeah, we did get, and this is a good thing, our casework came in on Friday, so, and they were installing it today. So that was really nice to see come in.
That's great.
As far as the rest of the areas, we have an issue with the gym floor. Where we're basically starting from scratch. We're going to reorder. They're redoing right now to get through submittals. And we're looking at probably 10 weeks from the time submittals are accepted.
What happened?
Wow.
with that.
And that also
Mm.
includes the stage. I'm sorry.
And I have that in an additional slide, but the flooring company that Heartland was working with went completely out of business.
Wow.
So just one of those setbacks. We have a plan to work through it. It will not prevent us from opening,
Mhm.
but it does
Yeah.
just cause us a setback.
Do you polish the concrete or?
We're gonna finish out, we're gonna
Just like
figure out a
finish the
way to
concrete
finish
so
the
that you
floor
can
so
use
it's
it and
safe
just
for the
walk on
kids
it.
to
Yeah.
use. Yeah, we're gonna figure some kind of way. That'll be whether we come in with some type of wood and
Mhm.
box around, we'll do something to make it where we can move on.
Mr. Terry, we back up one slide so Tim can keep going through.
Okay.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay, so what we have right now, on like I said, on the outside, everybody, we're right now as far as D section and F, they're moving along a lot better than we were. It's dried out in those areas. We've had a dehumidifier running in D for right now about 3 weeks.
Mhm.
And it's costing them about $4,000 a week to take and do this. And fuel, because we're running a generator to do it, so we're not cranking our AC units at this time. We're trying to get those areas dried out, and so we can, and conditioned well enough so we can come in and finish doing the sheet rock and everything else in those areas. The bathroom areas on that wing, they've got them roughed in now. The elevator, they were working on the elevator today. One of the parts for the elevator came in wrong. We found that out this morning. So I figure out what the delay on that's going to be. I met with the first construction side. We're kind of at that point right now on everything else. Everybody, the electrical and mechanical is still probably in D section are probably, I would say, about 55 to 60%. That's one of the areas again where A section is probably now at about 70%. So that's good. Ceilings are starting to go in the main hallway, start down through A area. The ceilings are going in. The special needs areas are they've got the carpets in, they've got the flooring all through there. There's the ceilings in. Doorways. We're almost to a point where we're closing everything up. Once we get this outer area where we can pour the concrete for the sidewalks and up to each doorways, that will allow us to finish those out. As far as any more substantial completions, sorry. As of right now, we're given classroom wing D and E as in 729 as a substantial completion. Guidance, we're given 722. Media area and special ed and STEM is 729. Kitchen area and cafeteria is going to be 722. Main corridor is 812. And exterior is 810.
So Tim, our substantial completion on the project right now stands at 8/12, right?
Yes, sir.
August 12th for substantial completion.
And furniture,
So
Furniture.
furniture, we actually met on today. So
That's
we
what
have
I'm
two
saying.
different
There today.
companies. So we walked it today with them. They will start as we finish wings. So as Tim said with C and F, you have some furniture arriving July 11th. Actually, furniture is going to arrive. We're staging it in the gym primarily and in the cafeteria if we need overflow. Looking at the furniture, there are only a couple pieces that they're worried about. None of them are essential for opening. Most of them are in the collaborative learning areas in between the classrooms. Something called a poof, which is a bigger chair piece, but we can operate without that piece. We're also keep in mind not opening at full capacity. So we can have 750 kids in the school. We'll be just under 500 to start.
Okay.
So we don't absolutely have to have every space or every piece of, so we have contingencies built in to shift where kids are based on availability. We will open with a punch list and folks working in the evenings and working on the weekends and
Yes.
those pieces, but we will open.
So I guess just one of the questions that, that people have asked is, not every classroom will be utilized once the building opens for
Correct.
school.
Just for the folks that are at home, I had a chance to view your presentation earlier, but on the last slide, there's a link.
Yep,
Can we
we're going to show you
that?
the drone
Okay.
footage. Yep.
Mhm.
we'll-
Okay. Yeah, I
so,
think people at home
Mr.
would
Chair,
like
can you
to
go
see
to the
that.
next couple slides? Tim really connected on most of these. The kitchen area, so not the cafeteria complete, the kitchen is nearly complete. Those of you that walked the building with me recently have kind of seen that. I already touched on classroom furniture coming in. Certificate of occupancy is scheduled for August 12th. If you want to know when teachers arrive, that's around August 22nd.
Mhm.
So we're not playing with a lot of time. And that is pending if everything goes well. I think what we've shown on this project, if something doesn't go well, we find another way. So substantial completion, August 12th. Staff has a fun moment. The past couple weeks, staff has gone out and now they have their rooms.
Good.
They had a lottery ping pong ball process. So folks got their rooms and really excited about moving forward. Here are a few things that will not be, barring a minor miracle, in place on day one. So the official playground equipment will not be there at the start of school. We will have playground equipment, balls, trikes, those different things, blacktops, sidewalks. But if you're looking for a slide and other swings and different things like that, the wait time on that, it won't happen. So the gym floor and stage floor, that's all with the same company. I just want to thank Tim because they did offer a solution, but that solution was a substandard floor
Yeah.
at a price that was more expensive than what we were buying, and we're not doing that.
Nope.
We've been so good on this project about holding firm. We're not always their favorite people, even though they're good partners to work with. Tim and his team have really been doing a fantastic job managing this project. It is my goal to come in at least $500,000 under,
That's great.
and we're beating that at this moment in time. Things will change. We have change orders coming in all the time, things that are outside of our control. Not all the time. Tim manages most of those. But we do have some things that come in from time to time, and some of them are pretty big ticket items, but that's the goal on the project, is to come in there. And right now we're beating that goal.
And we're doing that as we put back in the bus canopy, the playground.
Yeah.
I mean, we
So-
put a
Mhm.
lot of stuff back into this project that was VE'd out at one time.
The bus canopy was almost $180,000 thing that we took out, and we were able to put back in, and we're still beating the budget at this point. And we're doing that when costs are continuing to rise. So, but this is, we do have the latest drone footage, so we'll take a little flyby.
Wow.
It's exciting.
Mhm.
So the project's coming together. I wish we had an additional month, but we don't. So we're going to make it happen.
I'm basically looking at it like it's a renovation. We're gonna get everything we can possibly get done, and then we'll figure out how we're gonna manage the rest of it to get it finished.
That's great.
It's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pollock. Okay, next item is policy JN, student fees, fines, and charges for the 2021-22. And this is a second reading under essential goal 3 to obtain and align resources. Ms. Haney Moorheim, please
Madam
go ahead
Chair,
when you're ready.
Board members, Dr. Nichols, this is a second read. We have just a few updates. One, we did update the behind the wheel fee.
Mhm.
There's a calc tool that we use every year to determine the max that we can charge for that. And we are going to actually increase the rate of pay for those instructors, and actually gas is also very expensive right now. But we feel still that we need to lower this fee. This is in line with what Henrico and West Point is charging, so we feel very comfortable with that amount. The only other change that we have added, we did add a $50 pool fee. That was something that Mr. Spiak noted that he has charged in the past, so we want to make sure that was covered. We also adjusted the photography fee down to $35 and increased ceramics and art to $35 and $25 collectively.
And board members, the pool fee, contrary to the myth at the high school, there is no pool on the roof. That is for our swim team. We will be going back to the Whisk this year, where we're at Fort Eustis last year. So it's related to that piece. It's always been in. It just wasn't in your first read.
The only other item that we have redlined out was a lost agenda fee that was being charged by New Kent Elementary School. I believe there's some history there with the PTO funding agenda books. And that is not a fee that we plan to charge in the future. So we just wanted to make sure that that was redlined out. Those are the final changes and recommendations. Mr. Spiag did not wish to change his athletic passes. Those rates have not been set, but he feels comfortable with that fee at this time.
And that's a good deal.
Hopefully
that
we'll get a lot of participation this year.
Sure do. Yeah, I think after all the
Yeah,
success we
that's
had,
right.
we'll be selling a lot of those.
I just think that the
Trojan
parking should be
passes.
like $500 for a student. Yes. Because there's too many kids driving to school every single day. I think the SROs and the sheriff department would say, charge them $1,000 to park here, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's so hard, because how do you do that? Is that parents want all of their kids to drive now.
Mhm.
And at some point, I can see it happening, right? We're going to get to a point, because traffic is backed up how far on 249 every single morning for students coming into schools. And I guarantee you, this will be a stat that will come out, because the SROs, because I know they provide them, is that I bet there's at least 10 accidents, per year, because of somebody
Student
running to the back of somebody else, because we just have that many students driving now.
We do have a lot. You also have to consider, though, if they're on our buses, the amount of buses and drivers and fuel that we need to move them. But it's just either way.
It's a catch 22.
It's same with parent drivers.
Yeah, it's
dropping
hard.
off.
It's hard to win that. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just, and it makes it tough, So, I mean, obviously $50 is more than reasonable.
That's our final recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you, Haney.
Come
Thank
on,
you.
Haney.
And these are the things that keep parents up, fees.
That's
true.
That's right.
And I think it will be welcome that the Chromebook fee is removed this year.
The schools have seemed to be excited about that. It's less management of
Mhm.
fees for the middle school particularly. We really won't be charging any fees. I think open house, we looked at our staff even going over and maybe receding for the PE uniforms, but that's really it. You have one fee, I think, for CTE, one course. So it's just a lot less on Barbara and the staff there to, even teachers collecting those funds. I think just overall, it's going to be really great for them.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And this will come for a vote this evening. Okay, final item under old business is the federal programs applications. This is a second reading. Essential goal number 3, to obtain and align resources. Dr. Nichols.
So good evening again, board members. Mr. Miller did the first presentation for you on our federal programs applications with our Title I plan, our Title II focused on professional development, Title III with ESL, and then our Title IV plan. We've made no changes from the first read to now. The money that we receive is designated federally. There's no change in that. We use a good majority of it for salaries for personnel, and then other expenses related to professional development, tuition reimbursement, and so forth. So be more than happy to answer any questions but pretty straightforward from the first read.
Okay, board members, any questions on the federal programs applications? Okay, hearing none, again, that will come before us this evening for a vote, which takes us into our action items portion of the meeting. The first item is to consider the approval of personnel matters. Board members, do I hear a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations on personnel matters as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the superintendent's recommendations for personnel matters.
Thank you, Ms. Daskell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McBeath. And board members, any discussion on this action item? Okay, hearing none, we'll move towards the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, none opposed. The motion carries. Next item is to consider the approval of the appointment of policy JN, student fees, fines, and charges for 2022, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve the policy JN, student fees, fines, and charges for 2022, 2023 as presented?
Make the motion, we consider and approve the policy changes as presented.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mead. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Daskell. Board members, any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll move towards the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, none opposed. The motion carries. The last action item is to consider the approval of the federal programs application. Board members, do I hear a motion to approve the federal programs application as presented?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the federal programs application as presented.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McBeath. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. Board members, any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll move towards a vote. All in favor, board members say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, none are opposed. The motion carries. And board members, before we adjourn this evening, I will hope you let me make a few comments before we end tonight. I would like to take a moment to thank our teachers, our staff, administration, students, and parents for their partnership during the 2021-2022 school year. There is more work to be done this summer and in the upcoming school year, but I am proud of the effort, motivation, and determination I witnessed throughout the year. As Mr. Mead pointed out at our last meeting, approximately $1.8 million in scholarship money was awarded to about 50 members of the class of 2022. A lot of these scholarship funds were awarded from the New Kent community. That includes foundations, churches, nonprofits, and other organizations. What an amazing local community we have here in New Kent that works hard to support our students and reward their talents and abilities. Last week, I attended the New Kent High School athletic banquet that recognized our student athletes and coaches who participated in 20 sports this past year. The event lasted for more than 3 hours, and it was worth every minute to listen to the accomplishments of our teams, or that our teams achieved after almost 2 years of cancellations, postponements, quarantines, shortened seasons, and limited opportunities during the COVID-19 pandemic. My thanks goes to John Spiak, our athletic director, as well as all of our coaches, players, and parents that never gave up despite the tremendous challenges. Finally, the comment that all citizen voices do not matter is completely false and a direct result of intentional email manipulation. As a school board member, I have the obligation to differentiate between those who are looking to make political points versus those with firsthand knowledge, experience, and examples. Theodore Roosevelt, in his famous speech, "The Man in the Arena," said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. Teachers and administrators, thank you for being in the arena and for constantly trying to do better and perfect our partnership educating our children. I salute you and am proud to work for and with you. Finally, board members, our next meeting will be our July work session on Monday, July 18th, 2022. With that, our meeting is adjourned at 7:20 p.m. Thank you very much.
For your leadership.
Thank you.
Brush the dirt off your shoulders.
Thank you for saying what you said and meaning what you say and doing what you do.